Hey, Satanico here once again for God Loves Comics, and I've got another what else unboxing haul video, whatever you want to call it. I've got like 3 packages here, and I've got another one. And I just started this video, and the very first package was such an enormous pain in the ass to get into. There's like paper, and then it was sandwiched between, priority mail cardboard that the guy had sliced out. And there was tons and tons of tape, and so I basically talked for 3 minutes, well, almost 4 minutes, without anything happening. And still on top of this, he did something I absolutely despise, which then, after very snugly securing it and sandwiching it between all of this cardboard and everything else, then he still taped down the bag to the cardboard with this extremely sticky tape all over the bag. So it's just unbelievable. So it's actually an amazing comic, still stuck to the stupid fucking packaging, but there it is. Weird Science Fantasy 25, Al Williamson. I have one copy of this already, and this actually is a much nicer copy than I have. The copy I have has a lot of oxidation, and I think it's got a 4-inch spine split, so it basically is detached from the top staple. Maybe it's not quite popped at the bottom staple. This one actually looks really nice on the spine, and then, it's got a little bit of browning, a little bit, yellowing. But one of the great covers of all time, one of the great comics of all time. I wish I could present it a little bit better, and maybe I'll try to. But as I said, I don't want to spend an hour trying to safely separate it from all of this tape. Okay, that wasn't hard after I had already done all the preliminary work. So there we go. I think you can see it a little bit better. It's in the package. And actually, I think I noticed this. I'm not sure if I noticed this. I'm pretty sure I did. It has a subscription crease. I think you can still see it through the bag. Subscription crease right down the center. That's actually okay. I don't really mind. It's a slightly color breaking crease. Beautiful cover. Al Williamson. This is a comic that kind of introduced me to EC Comics, because I specifically remember this cover being in the Overstreet comic book price guide that featured EC. And that was the first time I had ever heard of EC, first time I had ever seen EC. All of this was pre-internet, of course, and they made EC seem like this incredibly magical company with these incredible artists. They weren't lying, they were absolutely right. And, any kid that loves dinosaurs is going to see this T-Rex and a volcano, these beautiful trees, and then these dynamic figures here, a rocket ship blasting off on the side. This incredible logo that they always had. It's just a beautiful comic. So, and I paid $75 for that, which is about the going rate considering that, considering the condition. It's not an incredibly in-demand comic for EC, but it is a very popular one. It not only has Al Williamson, I think it has Wally Wood. Man, I'm surprised I don't remember exactly. But and it also has an adaptation of Ray Bradbury, which is always cool. Okay, and so this is a rather disjointed purchase in the sense that it's kind of all over the place. I guess there's one little bit of an overriding theme, but it's not just one title like I've been getting with the Conans. And several duplicates. Like, I actually have a copy of this, and I actually have a copy of a couple of these others, which this one I intended keeping. I bought that because I love it. Some of these others I bought just to sell because the price was right. Now this guy's gone through a different process, and not a wholly terrible one. He sandwiched it between cardboard, then he put it in this yellow envelope, although this yellow envelope has tape all over it as well. It's actually, yeah, so, wow, alright. And, so it's a little bit, well, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to slice the top off right there. Instead of having to deal with all the tape, I think I can safely slice that off and then slide the comic out safely. A comic that is not boarded, and a comic that is in a lot worse shape than it looked in the pictures. I did know that this guy was, this was not a real collector, and so he kind of just slapped this up there. Didn't have the best pictures. Maybe it's not such bad shape. It feels, the bag itself feels very crinkly, but I think it's just the bag. Actually, looking at it, I guess it actually looks very, very similar to the picture. I mean, it's definitely the same comic that was in the picture. It wasn't always easy to tell exactly what the condition was, but I was pretty convinced it was at the very least fine. Batman 358 is the first full appearance of Killer Croc. The only reason I know this comic even exists, the only reason I ever cared, is I was looking for Don Newton comics. I kind of had an itching to find some more Don Newton Batman, just because I really have always liked Don Newton's art. It's kind of quirky, it's very elegant. He actually drew a really amazing Batman. And so I was looking and I saw this whole run of Batman, you know, Don Newton Batman in the 340s, 350s, I guess. And then suddenly you got a 357 and there was a huge spike in the price. And the reason why is because it was Don Newton. It had nothing to do with Don Newton, I'm sorry, but I mean, Don Newton did the art for that one. And it was the first appearance of Jason Todd, who would go on to be Robin, and the first cameo of Killer Croc. And then 358 did not have Don Newton art. In fact, it has Kurt Swan, which is, I've often said, is essentially the oatmeal of artists, in the sense that he is so bland. Sorry for the Kurt Swan fans. He's a consummate professional, I'm sure, but he was a very bland artist on Superman. I think probably Superman kind of was in the doldrums for a very long time with Kurt Swan drawing him. I much prefer Kurt Schaffenberger, in fact. Okay, so out of the bag, oh yeah, okay, the bag was just really, that bag was just crap. But the comic itself out of the bag is really nice. And this is actually my third copy of this, which is funny because this is not a comic I care about. I don't care about Killer Croc. I don't care about, I like Batman when it's drawn by really good artists, but this is pretty mediocre art. It's not terrible, you know. It's not terrible, but oh, well, I certainly don't want to do that. You can see it's fine. It's perfectly serviceable, as you would expect. It's Kurt Swan and Rodan Rodriguez. Jerry Conway wrote it, and the great Ben Oda and Adrian Waugh lettering and coloring. But why I would even have this in the same batch as this masterpiece, this EC science fiction masterpiece by one of my favorite artists of all time, probably in the top 2 or 3, Al Williamson. At any given time, he's #1. But I just plan on selling that, and I got that for a very cheap price. I think I got it for $10.50. And I also have this copy, which is even better. This is probably very fine, actually. And then this is near mint. And then I have another copy that's also near mint. And I sold one that I purchased for $5. I sold it for $60, so that's a pretty good turnover. So that's why I purchased these. If I can find them cheap, it's pretty close to a major key. It's Copper Age, but it's a major key in the sense that it's Killer Croc. So it would have been far, far better if the Suicide Squad movie, which I've talked about in the past, wasn't absolutely abysmal. But anyway. So the next package is from Pennsylvania. It comes in this bubble wrap. We've got every conceivable iteration of packaging. This one's is in brown wrap, but it's in a big triangular package because it has a big comic in it, or 3 big comics. So the rest of these comics do fall under one single title. Not even a title I always loved, and I guess it actually also falls a little bit in with weird science fantasy because we have some crossover in terms of science fiction, and best of all, some crossover in terms of art, which may give it away a little bit for those who are familiar. But yes, so this is a comic I had in my last haul, and I said I'd never owned it, even though I owned all the comics around it, you know, the numbers around it. But I'd never owned this one. And now, in consecutive weeks, I've got 2 copies. This is yet again Star Wars number 42. So that's actually listed as very fine. It's got a little smudge, but I think that's on the bag. It's got a little tiny corner crease, very small corner crease. Spine looks beautiful. Maybe a couple of tiny ticks in the black, probably some that you can't see in the white. Corner's nice, really nice, definitely very fine. I think something weird in the bag though. What is that? What the heck? Oh, I guess that's a marker. Almost look like the tail of something. I don't know if you can see it right there, but I guess that's marker. Okay, so anyway, and so yes, that's my second copy of Star Wars 42 as well. This one is very high grade. This is probably 9.4, maybe 9.6. And then this one's very fine. I'd say it looks like an 8.5. I'm really winging it when I say these things, but I don't think I'm too far off. Maybe wrong. Obviously, I haven't opened it, haven't looked through it, so I don't know what the pages look like. And this is, by the way, looking at my comic shop. I have the price pulled up for that? Oh, okay. Well, as I said, you know, this comic ranges. This actual issue cost me $39, and I won it in the auction. Previous one cost, or maybe this was a buy it now. Previous one was like $66 because it was high grade. But that's still actually a good price because especially high grade is priced up in the 140s, 150s. Whether you can get that for it or not, I'm not sure. And then this is 68. Star Wars 68. Another one I don't own and never have owned because I pretty much stopped buying Star Wars after the 40s, which was The Empire Strikes Back. But, of course, the tie-in there, the artistic tie-in is that, of course, 42 is by Al Williamson and Carlos Garzón. So you've got 2 incredibly distinct and very different eras of Al Williamson. From the 50s and from the, I think, 80s, late 70s. So, several decades apart. And then this is Gene Day, a Gene Day cover. And I think this was, of course, the first appearance of Boba Fett. And then this one, I guess, is just so popular because the Boba Fett cover. And, you know, so I just saw it. It was actually from the same dealer. Same guy had these, and it was, again, like an antique dealer. so I think they were a little bit underpriced, and so it was just within my it was just the smart thing to get them both, because I could obviously combine shipping and save that way, and the price was right. Even if I don't remember exactly what price that was, I think this was like $29. On my comic shop, you've got very fine, and this is definitely very fine. Looks like actually it's again a really nice copy. I looked at these very closely, and this actually looks like a really nice copy. I think definitely very fine. I think it's definitely in the 8.5, 9.0 range or higher. But so you've got a 7.5 on my comic shop for $61. You've got another for $61. You've got just a 6.0 for $34. But remember, I only paid $29 for this, so so I think it's certainly worth it. I think I can certainly recoup my money if I needed to, but I probably will just keep this in my collection, and I can certainly sell this duplicate copy of 42 if the Boba Fett movie ever comes out and makes a big splash. That would be good. But it is a very slow process to getting rich. So basically I buy these, like I said, 97% of what I buy is because I actually have to like the comic and like the art and care about it a little bit. I don't buy too much crap that I really hate. Now, this final package, pretty big. Has 3 books in it, and one that I really like, which once again is another duplicate. It's rare that I've added so many duplicates to my collection that I have lately. A lot of those Bronze Age Barry Windsor Smith Conans I now have duplicates of, and obviously we just saw Star Wars and Batman things, which I'm just selling. But one of these is a duplicate, and then a couple of others I've never had. And again, not bad. Not bad at all. Here's the theme of Star Wars. Can't even really fit that in the camera. But this is Star Wars #1, the Whitman variant, which, I mean, came out at the same time. It's basically a Whitman. The Whitman and the Marvel edition are reprints. It's still a Marvel special edition. I never quite understand the delineation there, but Whitman was, I guess, I have no idea why Whitman was involved. Except maybe I don't know. I have no idea. But they were. And the cool thing about this is I got 3 books for $20. So it's just too good a deal to pass up. And because I wasn't really intending on getting this. It's not something I had a burning desire for, but it's just too good of a deal to pass up. There was one that I was going to get that I wanted, and these 2 came along with it, so it's just fine by me. This is the other one. This is Star Wars #2. Now this one is in a lot rougher shape. It's kind of scuffed up all over the yellow and the Star Wars. It's a little creased. Kind of got crunched along the spine there, some major creases. It's kind of a dirty copy, a little bit soiled, I would say. It looks mostly like somebody stepped on it, but there's a big payoff coming, and I'm actually happy about the one that I wanted the most. It seems to be in really nice condition. And it's this one. Empire Strikes Back. You can see this, and kind of underestimated how big these were. Let's see if I can pull the camera back just a tiny bit. Okay, sorry about that. Oh well. So this is the Empire Strikes Back, the special edition, which is Treasury size. I did not know this actually even existed. I saw ETA Nick talking about it. He had the Treasury size, and he said he was disappointed initially because he was, at that point, really obsessed with collecting all of the Marvel Treasuries, which is a noble venture, and he ordered one in haste that he thought was the Treasury, and it turned out to be the Marvel Super Special, which is smaller, a little bit smaller. It's starts right here, and magazine size. I think it's saddle stitched and a glossier cover, but the exact same thing. And that's the one I own. I own the Marvel Super Special, and I never knew that the Treasury edition even existed until I saw that video. And I actually have the pocketbook, which is the very small one. It's really, it's just a little tiny pocket trade paperback that is technically the true first appearance of Yoda, and I guess Boba Fett as well. But yeah, I just wanted this Treasury edition. Now again, this is a little bit of soiling in the white. That's unfortunate, but other than that, spine, everything looks good. It's a pretty good copy. And 3 Treasury editions, 3 Star Wars Treasury editions for $20. And relatively cheap shipping, probably about $6 shipping. A perfectly good deal. And of course, filled with more beautiful Al Williamson art, which I haven't seen in a little while. I haven't opened one of these up in a little while, so I never get tired of them. I never get tired of Al Williamson art. You've got Al Williamson, Carlos Garzon, and I think, actually Rick Veitch, who you might know as an artist for Swamp Thing, was the letterer. Bob Larkin did the cover. Pretty well-known painter. And just, even though this is kind of on newsprint, I actually, I genuinely tend to prefer newsprint, but when it comes to a super special, it's on nice glossy paper. It really feels nice and it looks beautiful. So I do prefer that, but seeing these images in this much larger format is quite lovely as well. And a lot of the scenes that you're immediately sort of familiar with from the movie, which I've said on multiple occasions that Al Williamson, look at the Millennium Falcon going through this asteroid belt, that Al Williamson is one of the few artists I've ever seen who was capable of replicating the movie so beautifully, so perfectly, that there was no disappointment in reading the comic as opposed to seeing the movie. You were seeing the movie inside the comic book, whether it's Blade Runner, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, or the very cheesy Flash Gordon movie, which Al Williamson's comic adaptation is vastly superior to the movie. But there you go. That's beautiful. And final thing, this is one that's been in my collection for, since I've been collecting. This one was bought off the newsstands from 1978, and this was Whitman as well, and this was number 3. And this is actually, I think number 3 is a little bit more valuable than number 2. I don't know about number 1. Number 1 maybe is like a $40 comic, and probably a fine. But this one's actually 114 pages, so it's actually a lot thicker. And it's got a nice cover by Ernie Chan, even though it's not really his best work. And then the reason I didn't really love Star Wars when it started was relatively mediocre artwork. The thing that surprised me was that Dave Stevens actually embellished this from The Rocketeer, so that's not mediocre. But Howard Chaykin was just doing layouts. Then you have Steve Leialoha, Rick Hoberg, Bill Ray. A lot of people just kind of churning stuff out, and it's okay. Carmine Infantino did most of the run, but The standouts were Michael Golden's issue in number 38, and then right after that, 39 through 44, Al Williamson, Carlos Garzon. Really, 38 through 44 are the most beautiful issues of the entire series, even though Williamson did return and do more work in number 50, so that was nice as well. And Gene Day on number 68 is also great. But so there you have it. Very quick haul video. You've got 3 Treasury editions of Star Wars. One from my original collection that I purchased myself way back when, and then number 1 and 2, and of course Treasury edition, the beautiful Treasury edition, which I'm happy to have, and then a couple of the other Star Wars 42 and Star Wars 68, and that's pretty much it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks again for watching, and by all means feel free to comment or ask some questions or tell me I'm stupid. I don't care. Thanks again. See you next time. Bye.